But is that actually the problem with Himamaylanons? I don't know if big city politics is different from outside of Bacolod.
I'd like to think, I think politics is very dependent on demographics, on economics, and also on geography.
And that is quite interesting because it seems to me nga ang taga Himamaylan, I don't know kung Himamaylan lang na, may salig sa ilang nga lideres.
Well,
Mas taas ang pagsalig kumpara sa Bacolod.
the foundation of any institution, of any public institution, is social trust.
Exactly.
If you do not, is a Fukuyama.
Fukuyama.
Origins of political order. But anyway, I remembered something from Pol Sci 101. But anyway, if you do not have trust, if you don't have social trust, anything you do, dudahan gini. And which is why what we envisioned in Himamaylan, and what I always stress, is that the people have to know. I publish, for example, and you know, I cannot impose a set of values upon colleagues if I don't practice those same values.
But I'm pushing forward the argument. Ang taga Himamaylan, mas taas ang salig.
Yeah.
Pero dasig madula ang dasig madismaya. May kadudlaan bala?
Oh, well.
Ang Bacolod, hindi. I mean, if you compare
Well,
big city
hindi man
politics.
dasig ang kadudlaan. It took a while.
Pila ka terms?
Gosh, I've lost
Three
count.
full terms.
No, 9 full terms. Or 6 full terms.
6 full terms. So, well,
Yeah, I think 6 full terms.
dasig na na.
18 years.
Sa subong nga panahon.
Well, come to think about it, yeah. Yeah.
So, interesting na, no? Ang political temper is different. But then again, but this is very interesting about the loan, no? Damo kasi nga dapat makuhan kita, hiwat as ang public consultation. And then pag public consultation, I'm saying this generally, like makadto ta karon sa imong FOI nga project.
Right, okay.
May gahambal nga dapat may public hearing. But then when these groups go to the public hearing, they cannot understand a shred of the document. Why gani sila kaintindi kung anong budgeting process?
Right, exactly.
Diba? Which is my problem now with Facebook. Emosyon
All right, yeah.
Emotion-driven
It's
arguments.
Yes, it is.
But mamangkot, anong proseso sa pag-ubras ng budget?
Basta.
Basta may kinawatay na da.
What we do is this. What we have done, rather, and what we continue to do is this. First, there are 3 levels to it. Access to information, civic participation, and public accountability. It all starts with a set of values that allows that ecosystem to be established and to thrive in the first place. So, the value is from FOI. If you pass an ordinance, you're essentially telling the whole world, we've put it on paper, we've signed our names to it, mayor, vice mayor, all the councilors. As far as policy is concerned, we're open. Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Pwede man Ariel.
Okay, so, pwede man, no? But kilalang bulad po. Anyway, so sunlight is the best disinfectant. Okay. Once you have that, then you offer information to the people. We didn't have to do that loan thing, the public hearing thing, but we did. Because we went the extra mile. Because we really had nothing to hide either.
And that is transparency, actually.
That is true transparency.
And accountability at the same time.
Transparency leads to civic participation, where you have people actively saying, this is what we want, this is where we want our money to go. And once you have an active citizenry, public accountability follows, because then the public official would be afraid to do anything that goes beyond, or to abuse the trust that was given to them in the first place. Then it's a self-fulfilling cycle.
Ideally. Kung makadto kay because EDSA was 86.
Yes.
And then we have a part 2. And then a part 3.
Yeah.
Which was more of like araw ng mga maton.
Right.
Sa time ni Erap. No?
Okay.
No, ang point is, ang favorite philosopher ko, isa sa favorite philosopher ko, nagsiling in democracy, maintenance is required.
Yes.
Due diligence is needed.
Absolutely.
And that was from Anthony Bourdain.
I think the most powerful philosophers are those who walk among us every day.
And those who cook.
Exactly. Yes.
Amo na ang akon pamangkoton da may FOI ka nga law.
Right.
The first, by the way,
Yes.
in
Ordinance
Negros Occidental.
In Negros Occidental.
Ambot sa Pilipinas.
No.
One of
We
it.
are, I think we're somewhere in like the 60s or the 70s. There are different LGUs that have already done so.
So kung may legacy si Pinoy, that is one outstanding legacy.
No, it was not even passed during the time of Pinoy, and that was one of my greatest frustrations because I served him as president, and I was part of the office that was actively shepherding that. In fact, what's funny is this: the Freedom of Information Ordinance that I authored for Himamaylan was patterned according to the FOI bill that was passed by then Congresswoman Leni Robredo.
Okay.
Which was very, how do I put it? That was that went beyond, over and beyond the limits that was set by President Duterte. Now, what Robredo wanted was you didn't even have, yes, people could request the information, but most of the information would not need to be requested, kaya post automatically. When we passed that version of that ordinance, and we were ready nga pamatud-an gid namon, the provincial board said, no, it goes beyond the executive order of Malacanang. Stick within. So we said, what? So I talked to Assistant Secretary Ablan, who is in charge of the FY program. Sec, what if we want to be more transparent than you? They said, pwede. But then we said, no. If the provincial board refuses to review and approve our ordinance, then it's useless. So what we did was we stuck with what they said in the executive order of President Duterte, and it got passed in the provincial.
So this is more like a landmark na local legislation.
Oh, definitely. Among the landmark that I'd like to think we were able to do in Himamaylan. Beyond that, we also have a public-private partnerships ordinance. We have numerous ordinances as far as education is concerned. We've been able to increase our financial aid to a lot of our indigents, all through legislation. And we're looking forward this year. Number one, what we're really pushing for is an Indigenous Peoples Scholarship. And next to that, we're looking at incentives for property owners for abandoned mangroves. Abandoned fish ponds to convert them back into mangroves. Because Himamaylan is the breeding ground for the fisheries in the Panay Gulf.
Seriously?
If you look at the geography of Himamaylan, we are at the, how do I put it, above the ankle of Negros Island. People think of Himamaylan as a fisheries capital. Actually, no. Our coastal waters are very small because we form a cove. So this point to this point, we only have like a small square. But that's where all the stock comes from. Yeah.
Ang pamangkot, may ordinansa, pero ang may ara sa nag-avail sang oportunidad nga ginahatag sinang ordinansa.
Oh, absolutely.
May nakuha ka mga FOI requests.
Requests?
Yeah.
Well, I got a request asking for my SALN. So,
Ay, justa.
So I said, I post my SALN. So I said,
Ang imo ya SALN.
my SALN. So I post it. No, politicians are very afraid, and sometimes they're afraid to post such a private document without thinking that the moment you put your signature there, the box on top of it says, I empower the ombudsman to do this, to that. It's practically the same thing. If an individual requests the ombudsman, kasuhan niya ka because of this purpose, makuha yung nagyapon.
But the Data Privacy Commission said nga ang SALN is not exempted anymore.
Yeah, it's not exempted anymore.
Which is a problem actually.
What do you mean not exempted?
Not exempted from...
Requests?
No. Di ba sa naging clarify sang Data Privacy Commission?
Yes.
Nga it is not included.
Not included in the list.
Subong, it is included.
It is included already.
Which is very confusing.
Well, then now we have to challenge our politicians.
Exactly the point. Because ang pamangkot, of course, that will tend to overrule your ordinance if it's a national policy.
I have not read the policy. But but as far as our FOI is concerned, our requests have primarily been on the status of projects, how much has been allocated for specific items, list of JOs and contractuals.
Which is good.
Which is good, yeah. And we have an information officer who handles all these things. And of course, there are some individuals who say, kilanlan ginaihatag and everything. But
Ang request, reputable man yung mga tao o may future track man sa politika?
I don't think public policy should discriminate.
Well, but what I'm trying to say is if we're looking at real real citizens empowerment, dapat citizen gid eh.
Fair.
Ang gabaligya balot, ang gabaligya tabagak.
Fair.
Hindi amo na.
Well, I'm not sure about their occupations. but let's put it this way. You are a citizen of the Philippines if you were born in the Philippines. So they're all citizens.
Kung sa bagay.
One of the few things I picked up from being in law school, which I, by the way, unfortunately and sadly had to give up.
But then again, that's statutory construction na eh.
Fair.
Diba?
Yeah, any citizen worth his salt should be able to know these basic things. As part of civics.
Dira ako karon makato because
Okay.
of course we're talking about access to information,
Right.
but as I've said, due diligence may arang Pinoy. I mean, have we even learned to identify kung an example, every year may budget hearings sa
Yes.
national budget.
Right.
And people don't even understand until now kung anong ginatawag ng GAA.
Oh, right.
Honestly, kung lapit naman lang si Mana Santa, medyo maputik ta kadali sa akon nga kaugalingon. Because reporters were not actually diligent sa siningabutang. And these are things that the public should learn supposedly from their press,
Well,
which the press didn't do.
isn't that the age-old argument that what interest should the press serve? What the people want or what the people need? Age-old question.
Sa bagay,
But then the question is, diba, what sells?
what sells?
So it's difficult.
For a time, okay man na kung may nag-funding eh. Transparency project,
There
you
you
know.
go. Right.
Well, but at least inyo may ara ka mo sang FOI.
Yes.
And pila naka-requests ang nabato ninyo?
I have lost track.
19 to 20. Is it fair to say nga mga gatos naman nabato?
Wala pa kagatos. Yeah. Or I think we're in the low 30s, siguro. Yeah. Which is already good.
It is.
Yeah.
Diri wala ko kabalo kay wala pa man sang FOID.
Yeah. Although there are arguments, is it really necessary to pass an FOI ordinance given that there are national laws that cover these very things? For us, and that came up also in our discussion, but in our case, at least my argument was very simple. This sends a message that we are ready to be scrutinized and that public accountability is really not just our slogan or a byword, it's really ingrained in our style of governance.
And that is actually 21st century governance na, no?
It must be.
It is the modern day
Yeah.
way
Right.
of doing things.
It's very Western, and it's sometimes maybe in conflict with the way Asian democracies are run, but I think it's a good blending. People in power should be held accountable. Long gone are the days when the person in power had the baton de mando, and that if you had that, you had to keep quiet. But or children were not allowed to speak in the dinner table. But I think times have changed.
Oh, yes. Which brings me to your character as someone who is both liberal and conservative. What do you think ang mga values that should remain? I mean, in the age of identity politics, everyone can be anything he or she wants to be. He can be gay, he can be bi, he can be lesbian. Wala ko kabati pa nga may tao nga gusto nga nagambal nga siya kanding ko ya. Kay kun may arasak dagon ko sa dayon mo.
You know.
Kasi again, amo na wala, anyone can be anything he or she wants to be.
Right. They're just, for me, they're just too many labels that are being thrown around.
Isa pa na.
As far as the political spectrum is concerned, I've taken the test many times. And it seems that my answers have led me to center left, but also liberal. So I'm supposedly, based on the test, I'm supposed to be socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. So centrist, I guess. But you know, all these labels just confuse people. I go by the simplest label of all, being a good person, as much as possible.
But then again, there's also the question of how do you actually judge if your action is good for others?
Well, of course, there are certain metrics that you involve there.
I mean, Subong, huh? Because are we holding on to common values, Subong?
Common values. Wow, that's loaded. because you'd like to think that, you know, the Filipino is this, the Filipino is that, but or the Negrense is this, the Negrense tikalon. You know what I mean? But I'm not very sure. In this age of cosmopolitanism, in this age where access to information has gone beyond geographic boundaries, I'm not sure if we still hold common values. And I'm not sure either if that's a good or a bad thing.
And we have realized nga ang isa sa mga common values or common belief natin, ang value system natin, it seems to be relative. But we believe in the aswang.
Apparently, yes.
And that is a common belief, no? Which actually binds us together.
Well, it is. I think the aswang is the fear of the unknown and the unknowable. And I think that is an intrinsic fear in any individual of any culture. It just brings us back to being human.
Eh, kung sa bagay. And which is being mobilized even sa elections. So it's the fear.
Right.
Previous lessons, previous incidents would point to the fact, pag pandemic, ang anger, ang akig,
Grabe.
Grabe.
And even in our campaign, there was a lot of vitriol on both sides, I have to admit. But I'm glad that Mayor and I, you know, after the elections, really tried to clean things up and really said, and me and the entire council also, really said, let's put all of this aside. And the first thing we did was really sit down with as many people as possible, at least the political leaders and everything, and say, let's turn a new leaf. Let's turn a new leaf. Let's move forward from this. And let's see what we can do together as Himamaylan.
What makes you happy nowadays? I mean, all the gloom.
There's a lot of gloom around. One of the things that I learned to do in this pandemic is to cook awesome tinola. So I cook it maybe once a week, and then that's what makes me happy. I've also learned to value and treasure friendships and relationships. What else makes me happy? I think I'm just happy that Himamaylanons are slowly but surely waking up and realizing there's so much that can be done. There's so much that we are doing, and they're really behind us.
Can you recall an anecdote sa recent pandemic while you were out in the field or anything? Tell me something. Something you cannot forget.
That I cannot forget. Okay. One day we were serving one property nga do ariendohan taninamon. We came across a shack. A shack? Almost na. Time ni sang sap. Okay. And then apparently nagwa sa Facebook na daw this hunched over old man wala ka baton. So I wanted to find out din tong balay do lapit man lang di. Kadtuan namon. What was sad was that it turns out he used to be one of our employees. Way back. Wala ko pa siya naabtan. You know? So I was born in 1988, so that way back. And we found out that he did not even have a birth certificate. If you don't have a birth certificate, you don't exist. And so I said, what can we do? So we collectively came together as an office. We pitched in funds. We built him a small house. Casa sa Gugma. Named it that way. We talked to our local city civil registrar. We got his birth certificate. We got his senior citizen's ID. At least now he exists. And I'm just afraid that there are so many people like him.
Anonymous.
I'm not very sure if anonymous is even the right term, but invisible. And I think we have to look farther, look deeper because we have to find these people.
Very personal question. Kalaslon ka kuno?
I can see that another person.
Let me qualify. I'm the youngest of 7 siblings. Of us 7, only 2 of us are not married. Okay. But I have seen also the struggles of having to go through annulments. I have family members who are annulled, and I've seen firsthand how it affects children, how it affects relationships, and given how the marriage as an institution in this country has been set up, you have to be fairly sure of who you want to marry once you make that decision, because it's something that's very difficult to turn your back on later on. And so, to your point, I hope that it's only a matter of time.
Fair enough. Vice Mayor Justin Gatuslao, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.